So today we talk to Julius Keng'entu. He's going to talk to us about youth, sexuality, and parental relationships. And Julius is a father of 3. We really have the pleasure to have this conversation with him. Welcome, Julius.
Thank you.
Yes, and please tell us more about, briefly about yourself.
I want to appreciate the opportunity that I have today, which I've never had before, to talk about parenting and the relationship with the children, and more specifically the aspect of sexuality. But again, this is driving from a point that you parent the children in a manner of making them the kind of parent you'd wish them, in a manner that is reflective of the parent you'd wish them to become. And this is something that lingers in my mind every moment. I think of relating with them, I think of interacting with them, and more specifically as they grew. More often I would think of a parent or the way I would wish to see them treat their children. Anytime I wanted to discipline, anytime I wanted to correct them, and anytime I wanted to have an interaction out of work with them, I thought of the kind of parent I would wish them to be. And I would repeat the ones that I'm bringing up children that have a hand, have hands and legs to stand. And therefore, as I bring you up, these are things that you have to bring on board. And this has really been critical to our relationship as parents. But again, I also appreciated that the role that my relationship with my wife, with my dear wife, also has a lot to do with how they relate, with how probably they come to relate with their spouses, how probably they respond to issues, and has a lot to do with how they respond to issues maybe as mothers, and of course as a father, realizing you have 2 girls and 1 boy, and the 2 girls, the mother would be reflective. How we relate with her and how she relates with me, again, has a lot to do with how they are likely to relate in later days on either side. Well, discovering that the parenting is not really an easy thing, because nobody goes to a school to learn of how to get married and how probably to bring up children. It is a very challenging task. But experience, what I've acquired over time, interacting with the parents, those that became parents before me, and those that I'm bringing up children, has a lot to do with how I desire to relate with my own children. Citing that I'm a professional working in other areas, I discovered that probably sometimes I didn't have time, but again, I had to find time. More often, when interacting with my colleague workers, I could hear something, they have no time to visit their family. But one thing I've never missed since when I got employed is time to be with my family. I have never missed that opportunity. If I was not able to make it, I got an opportunity to call and talk to them. And at one point I discovered that I needed to have a meeting every holiday, and you realize they are distanced. The last one, the gaps in between, of course, were caused by phenomenons, natural, where we lost, one between, and the other one, of course, we lost between. Again, we lost twins. So the distance, many people posed question, why the distance? And for some, we have not explained. Maybe whoever came, maybe somebody who came who posed a question directly, were able to explain what happened. But again, you have to convene every time they close school. I have to convene a meeting whereby we evaluate the term and we talk about what is it that we did to you that you are not happy, and what is it that we did that made you happy, and our children could share about it.
That's definitely looks like a very cordial relationship between you and your children.
Yes.
And with your family. What is it that informed this kind of approach? Because I know, like you said, parenting is tricky. It doesn't come with a manual. What is it that informed this kind of approach to parenting?
Realizing that I worked as a chaplain and of course as a voluntary minister with the Methodist Church, there are certain issues that were always mentioned about minister children, and of course again that were mentioned about police officers, about workers sometimes who really don't have contact with their children, and so they develop wayward children. And on a positive note, I thought I could use some of the acquired skills and experience outside to kind of see what comes out of this. And of course, again, I developed again an attachment with the children. Right now, I'm doing mentorship. I've been doing mentorship for the last 7 years to my primary school where I studied. And I've seen children become. Like last year, we had 16 children who were able to go to national and provincial schools. We had 300 and above 16 students, pupils from my school. And the one thing that why I decided to do this is what I've seen happen with my children as is also consequential to what I've done to other children, to children in other parents. Yeah, and I also mentor my secondary school where I mentored for a few days and then became the chairman, where I'm the chairman of the BOM.
Wow, I'm curious to know the specific aspects of your discussions specifically with your children. I know we are living in a society where there are a lot of changes and there are different things that people are embracing. What are the specific things that you think are important that for you to discuss with your children?
It didn't. You mentioned about sexuality. That is a challenge today. I remember the other day when this motion came on board, when this bill, was prepared by one of the Mheshimiwa. This became very, very challenging. In 2006, I underwent a training on agenda held for the human resource, for the human HR, whereby I happened to be one among the two who are not supposed to have been part of the training. But again, after the training, the encounter that I had kind of shaped my concept, whereby we were given a illustration of this father, of this parent who happened to have been this parent who decided to take a blanket, cover his face so that he could talk with his teenage boy about sexuality. And this informed me that I needed to talk about sexuality at an early age. That is back in 2006, whereby I talked about sexuality with my children. And how I started it, I went to their science books that they were used to in their school. And my wife used to be one of those that were training, that were empowered on issues of HIV and AIDS in the church. So I started talking about some of the causative avenues, some of the diseases that affect human beings. And one of the diseases they mentioned that was so fresh in their mind was HIV and AIDS. How do human beings contract it? And they talked about how people contract. The firstborn could not, because of the age factor and the difference, the age difference could not become the first one to talk. But again, the lastborn and the secondborn were able now to verbalize about how some of the diseases. They talked about diarrhea. They talked about coughing. They talked about measles. And then HIV, sexually transmitted diseases. And then I went back to the science book, and we talked about the human development, human body, and we were able to name every part of the body. Not from me, but each one naming. Because in the training I had done, we were called names of the body. We were called names of the parts of the body. You describe it in your own mother tongue, in Swahili and English, and how it is used in sexuality and its importance in sexuality. So this gave me a lot of power and a lot of enforced my kind of enthusiasm. My kind of desire to talk about it. So we started discussing sexuality at that time. That as we grow, there are changes that take place in our body. The girls have changes. They have changes that appear. The boys have changes. And we discussed each one. This is not a topic that we were able to culminate in one day. But along the way, after opening in 2006, we continued until even when my firstborn was in the university, we were able to discuss. Have you found a friend? Because I realized you have grown. And she tells me she has a friend. Is it a business friend or probably an academic friend or a revision friend? And then she tells me, just a friend. Then we enter into an engagement question, what about it? And the girl talks about it. Though again, in a shy manner, the topic could not continue for that day. But again, along the way, we were able to discuss and we were free. So when she got the husband that she has today, she brought the issue and we discussed. But at one point, I had to ask her, my daughter, can you take the position now? You are our mother. Your mother and I now are your son and daughter. Now tell us how you wish us to stay and to behave in a society that is immoral, that is affected by issues that probably are affecting your psychological setups as far as our growth and development are concerned.
So the girl get into your shoes.
Yes.
And you to get in her shoes.
Yes. So she sit there, I leave my seat, and then she sit there. Talk to us as your children. And then our girl tries to make it, then later I take the position, and then we were in agreement that we need to discuss these issues of sexuality, we need to discuss issues of relationship, and to talk about it. If you think a boyfriend is evil, it is not evil to have a boyfriend. A boyfriend, as a girl, as a boy to have a girlfriend. But again, what kind of a boyfriend? And to where are you going? Probably what are the plans with this boyfriend? Is it to study, or probably business, or probably what kind of a boyfriend?
And many parents find it difficult to have such conversations with their children. What do you think made it easy for you to have this kind of a conversation? Was it difficult? What is it that really made it easy for you to get started with it?
One is the kind of challenge I got from the illustration, where this parent, the father, covers his hand, covers himself with a blanket to talk with the teenage boy about sexuality.
They didn't want to show
their face. They did want to show their face because culture has not really taught them so, that you don't talk about this. But again, experience also told me that if I don't talk about it, then who else is going to talk about it? The teachers will talk in their version, and the society will talk in their version.
And the child will be in confusion.
And again, I discovered, if I don't talk about it, my children will not also talk about it. So I discovered I have to break the culture, the cultural way of talking about sexuality. So my children can now talk about it.
That's amazing. That's really, I mean, it just shows that there is an active role that parents can play, and what can be done at the family level. What do you think would be the role of the church as far as relationships and sexuality is concerned?
I think the church stands a critical position to enlighten the members, the parents, the mothers and the fathers, the sons and daughters. And the fathers and mothers to realize it is their responsibility to call each part of the body the way it is called, and to describe its role, so that as the child grows, they are able to tell. To talk about sexuality, because it is part of life, so that the children can get the truth from an authority. And if they are not able, if they are not able to pick it from an authority, they will pick it from other authorities, and those becomes authority. Because what a child, I remember, I'm just challenged by my firstborn, because she reminds me of things I never knew. That she tells me how I relate and how I face the world, how I face issues, how I share, how I've never beaten them in public. I didn't know about this. That anytime they messed at the table room, I went with them, the bedroom. I've never beaten my children before anybody. Nobody has ever seen me beat my children. Our children, nobody. And she reminds me, I've never beaten them when they've not committed anything or omitted. That's what she reminds me. I never knew about this.
That must be an instinctive parenting skill, you know.
And this is what now the church, but the parent have the authority. We talk of the church as a second entity from the parent. And I thought that as a parent, you have the number one priority to talk about sexuality. The church, again, plays a role as a mother, and the school plays their role. But the first number one priority is the parent.
The family.
The family. The family setup. Those are the people that stands, have to come up, have to talk about sexuality. They have the authority. They are the ones who have the authority.